This universe will always require a human, and that's fine. So our goal is not to replace that human. Our goal is to give that human a superpower.
The Way of Will John.
What's happening, people? We are back with another guest. We have Tal Brown here from Zone 7, and I'm not going to pretend to introduce what Zone 7 does. Tal is going to introduce himself and all the good stuff that they are up to. So, Tal, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, really, really, really nice to be here and be part of this community. Thank you for scouting and reaching out. Real pleasure.
Sure. Like I said, bring us up to date. AI is on everybody's minds. You guys have been doing this for a little bit before, the craze. And so you've probably got some decent insight. Why don't you tell us what you guys do?
Sure. So if you think about machines, you often think about, is my machine up or down? There's a whole concept about you're investing in something and you want to make sure it's available to perform. And so kind of borrowing that metaphor, there are humans out there that are pushed to their limit in the job they do, right? And sometimes you push them too far, too hard, too much, and they break down. And so what we had in mind was a question around which we formed the company. With the right data, with the right approach to data science or AI, could we find ways to help humans stay available and performing at their best for longer periods of time? And that basically kind of means we're focusing on human uptime as a way to address that. And so we're using AI to create algorithms that, number one, help to forecast when somebody's at risk of, we just say that generally breaking down. And then we create more algorithms that help tune or calibrate or introduce some modifications to that individual's routine so that they can keep on performing at their peak towards their goals, but also not break down and stay available. And nowhere is this more dramatic than sports, where individuals are pushed really hard because that's the nature of the phenomena that is human sports. And in some cases, they're paid a lot and they mean a lot to the organization, to the fans, to the success, and you want to make sure that they're there to compete. And so we started our journey in sports. So think about, can we detect when somebody's at high risk of an injury ahead of time? And can we help navigate that individual towards being available and performing at their peak for longer? And with the context of sports, that blends into a team and the team's goals and coaching staff and medical staff. And so there's a whole ecosystem of folks involved with that when we do it in the sports environment.
Okay. I mean, that's incredibly interesting. I mean, that's essentially, a lot of the teams that I've played on, it depends. I mean, some teams don't even have like a sports psychologist. That's become the norm across Europe now. I mean, and a lot of teams are doing stuff with data. My first question would be, if you're trying to predict and do all this stuff, how are you receiving data? What's your input?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you look at the world of sports and the operations side, not talking about tickets and fans and stadiums, talking about the operations of running a team, then data from the games is already being there, been collected for a bunch of years, right? So every time a soccer player, basketball player, baseball player, football player is on the field, playing, competing, we're quantifying stuff. We're counting stuff that they do, what's called game events, right? Tactical information, right? Like a crossover is a tactical information, right? A pass, a steal. When you pick the sport, it's there. That's what we call kind of game event data. But there's also data about the physical aspect of playing the game. And by physical, I mean you're running fast, you're running slow, you're changing direction, you're accelerating, you're decelerating. So all these little things are forces that your body produces to play the game. And when your body's producing forces, that represents effort. And, there's so many times you can deploy an effort before your body breaks down. So the data from the game is being collected already. There's data from every game played, probably soccer, basketball, baseball, football. A lot of sports are quantifying that. We don't make those sensor, but we plug into that data. The other type of information is information from the practice, right? You could be weightlifting. You could be practicing on the field or the court. Again, forces and effort your body is producing. That's physiological data. And then there are more data sets like, is somebody maybe using an Apple Watch to measure how well they sleep? Or does somebody have a history of injuries? That's also an important information. Or how strong are you as measured by a device that measures the strength of your legs or your arms or whatever. So all that information is coming into our models. and we use that information to create kind of like, think about it like a pattern recognition, right? All this information is out there. We're collecting it. A technical term would be sanitizing it, cleaning it, organizing it. And then we were able to look for patterns in the data. So a lot of data about a lot of things that happen on the field, on the court. Can we find patterns that repeat before a specific event happens? Can we find patterns that repeat themselves before a very good performance is there, or maybe even an injury? And that's how we look at that problem from a data recognition perspective.
Okay. So 2 questions I have there. Going with the first one, we're not at a point as a society then where you could just give me a chip, or there's no like thing that you could just attach to me, right? That could be the Zone 7 watch. Boom, you got it. You got my heart rate, how I'm sleeping, how much I'm working, when I'm stressed out, all that stuff. There's not a one size fits all thing for society yet. And if there isn't right now, will there be?
Right now, there is no one sensor to rule them all. And the reason is, in my opinion, and I'm not a sports medicine expert. The reason is that, injuries and human performance is a multifaceted issue. There is no one way. Like, you can measure sleep really, really well. That's not enough. You can measure running distances and speeds really, really well. That's not enough. You can measure forces at the gym, right? How strong your legs are or whatever that is. That's not enough. So you really have to look at this problem from multi-dimensional problem. It's not enough to just measure one of those elements very, very well. And then there are other things that aren't really measured digitally, right? If somebody's in a bad mood, somebody didn't sleep well because of a baby or because of a hangover, those factors sometimes are not within the digital realm of data you can collect. So I don't think we have one magical thing to solve it all in terms of the sensors, the rings, the watches. So it's an accumulation of different things. And you have to have a fairly good grasp and a fairly, good incoming data set for each of those, or for most of those. Will we ever get there? I don't know. I personally don't think we will.
Okay.
I think this will remain one of those things that requires a puzzle. And it's not about one solution to that puzzle. And it's not about just one set of eyes on that puzzle. It's going to require a bunch of things. Let me throw this other thing is this other idea in. Some AI applications don't really need a human, right? Like AI that can understand when to buy and sell stocks, right? It's gonna do it, and it's gonna make money, and you don't need a human making decisions, right? Or you can now get this AI thing that will you buy a ticket on an airline, and it's gonna look for times when that airline ticket is cheaper, and it's gonna replace it, right? There is no human there. This universe of human performance, performing in a team, performing as an individual, hitting a certain fitness goal, that will always require a human. Sometimes it's a super educated and experienced and, sports medicine coaching expert. Sometimes it's just you when you're trying to hit a goal. But this universe will always require a human, and that's fine. So our goal is not to replace that human. Our goal is to give that human a superpower, kind of like X-ray vision, to see stuff that otherwise is really hard to see. So we're using AI here, but in a very empowering way, not necessarily in a way to say, AI is going to be better. No, AI actually can do the thing. We need a human to do the thing. We just want to make that human more powerful and with more insight.
I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense, and I would not be a good host if I didn't play devil's advocate. And I have all these questions here that I want to ask you, but I have because in doing research on AI, DeepMind, Google's DeepMind is training robots to play football.
Yeah,
right. And they're doing so. Okay, you saw the videos, which is pretty insane, right? And nowhere in there were they even remotely scared or concerned about the fact that this isn't going to lead towards robot sports and AI sports and all of this stuff. And when I hear you say, this is the type of stuff that is going to empower the human, it's like, for sure, right? But for now, right? For now. But because when I employ my robot team that I've bought for whatever, $200 million from to take on Google, I'm going to come to Zone 7, right? And I'm going to say, well, look at my robot. It hasn't done this, and he's not doing this. And then in that case, I don't need to be coach anymore. I just need to employ that. I mean, are we not in the danger of, and I know this is beyond, I'm going beyond the scope of this stuff, but I'm just curious for someone who's in the industry. Is there not eventually that danger, that the human performance? Why? What do you need a human to run around for?
Look, the psychology of the sports phenomena is something that I'm not an expert in. Is there a time in the future, 20 years down, 10 years down, 50 years down, where fans like you and me would rather watch robot soccer than human soccer? Maybe that time is there. I personally don't see it. I mean, personally,
I hope not.
I don't think I'd be attracted to that kind of sport. So
No.
I'm not so worried about that as a fan. But if the industry goes there, then what can we do? I mean, it's not like today kids get together to watch like an auto game of FIFA, right? Like they want to watch somebody versus a
Very
computer,
good point.
but not two computers playing each other. Like what's the fun in that? So
Very good point.
I wouldn't. I personally, I don't feel like the industry would gravitate there. I think the human drama of watching these stars play, and
Mhm.
like we're just at the back end of the NBA finals, so like there's a lot of human drama there. It really that's what attracts us, I think. Would fans respond so intensely to Euro, what was it, Super League, if it was robot
robots.
Barca versus robot Madrid? I don't think so. But here's what I do think: if you are buying a fleet of very expensive airplanes because you're FedEx or because you're an airline, or if you're buying really expensive machines that manufacture something, you will have a big diagnostics budget. Right. You're going to spend a lot. You're going to innovate. You're going to try and look for mistakes, errors in the machine. You're going to try and anticipate them breaking down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I don't want to reduce humans performing on a field to machines, but
Sure.
in a way, like our industry in the AI side is already doing those things for mechanical universe, right?
Mhm.
And so I think there's ideas and concepts there that we could use for other areas. Some of them to do with human performance. And for us, it's not just
Sure.
about soccer players or basketball players or football players. It's also about, can we do this for folks who are exposed to kind of like tough conditions at work, right? Could we do it for soldiers, which we are? Could we do it for, other types of physical burden and exertion, right? Could be physical as in lifting stuff, could be physical as in working very late hours in a hospital. So human performance goes way beyond sport.
Sure.
In fact, the military athlete or the industrial athlete outnumbers sports athletes by orders of magnitude. And so for us, it's an ambitious goal to create a positive impact for a bigger community. But we were starting with sports because that's where data is, and that's where the economics are.
Yeah, and I mean that makes perfect sense as well. And I kind of want to touch on. I mean, obviously, I have written down here to talk about what you guys are doing for the military and stuff like that. I'm sure it's really interesting, and so maybe we can get a little bit of that. But I wanted to go back to some of the data that you guys collect and then the conclusions you draw from that data. And so, what I'm curious is, both on the positive and negative side, if you find some information that states, "Hey, this guy's been overworked. He's in a high risk area for an injury right now. Don't play or rest or change the tune of training and do this or work on more flexibility. Send him to the sauna, whatever it is." Because, like you said, you're working so much on doing human performance. My question is both in the positive and negative, because like the negative, we're avoiding injury, and the positive, this guy's on a hot streak, he has to play, right? And there could be negative consequences to both, right? If you're wrong and nothing's perfect. But I have one more small anecdote that'll bring this all home, which is I was in Denmark discussing this stuff with Brøndby, which is a Danish, very, very famous Danish club. And we got to talk to I'm not sure what his title would be, but he's essentially the head of their data and management. And I asked him one question, and you touched on this as well. You don't know about a hangover, and you don't have the information about if there's a baby crying. I said, well, I know some guys, like I'm a human on the team, and I have my own data set. And I know that every time this guy's girlfriend's in town, the next day that player is shit, And I don't need to know anything about whatever it is that you're taking in. I know every time he's there, or every time she's there, they drink, he goes out, and the next day he's shit. When she's not in town, He's great. And so, and so I said, "Are you collecting this information?" And he had the same thing like you, like that's not available, right?
Yeah.
And you can't overstep those bounds. Obviously, there's got to be a limit to privacy and things like this. But to put it all together, when you get this positive and negative output, what are they getting? What is a coach getting? What is a coaching staff getting? Does it say, is it just a red flag, or is there a green? And go, or how does that work?
Okay, so I think the first thing to talk about is when people engage with data, and I'm going to be very general. People, data, very big concepts, but narrow it down to even the sport universe. We're accustomed to deal with raw data. And by raw data, I mean it's empirical, objective data coming in from a sensor. Right, the guy ran 100 miles, or the guy ran this far or this fast. Maybe this amount of hours per sleep if you get that data. And so, kind of like when you're driving a car, you're used to interpreting what you see as facts. This is the speed. This is the gas tank, how full it is. What we create, and we're part of a bigger community of AI apps. We create insights or new nuggets of information that are not necessarily the raw data. We don't tell our coaches he ran a lot, and this is the number of meters. We create this new nugget of information, which you can call a risk forecast or a risk probability, whatever that is, a risk score. And then we create a recommendation or an alternative way of training today, which sometimes could be, hey, you got to push harder or you got to go a little bit lower. And that information is not raw. It's not fact. It is a probabilistic output of a model.
Sure.
And so part of what we do is to help or to aid folks who engage with the data in this journey from, all right, I'm looking at something that is not 100% accurate. I need to be able to adjust to working in a probabilistic state of mind, right? The risk flag that we create, it says high risk for an acute or for an imminent injury over the next couple of days, kind of likely to be maybe a hamstring, maybe a knee. That information is not raw. It's not factual. It is probabilistic. Now, for you as the driver, as the expert, to be able to understand that and to take action on it, you have to know how accurate it is. We're not misleading people and saying, oh, this is as accurate as the gas tank being full or empty. And so part of the journey is to create information in a process where folks become used to dealing with that. We can't solve it. We're not going to be 100%. We're not going to be 100% accurate. No AI system is, right? The only AI systems are maybe that those that detect missiles or things that really cannot have any error in them. And the error is there because we're not perfect, because yes, the girlfriend factor, the hangover factor, somebody took a plane, went to watch a game in some other country, didn't sleep all night. People sometimes do things that are out of your realm of data. So first thing is to realize we're not perfect. This is not perfect. But the question is it better than what you have right now? Does it add net new value? And that's the journey we go through with our clients. In terms of what we show three main things. Number one is there imminent risk? By imminent, I mean next couple of days, maybe the next game or two. Around that risk is information and context. What kind of risk, right? What kind of injury do we think is going to happen? It's not scanning somebody. It's just using AI to look at similarities to other injuries we analyze. What is driving the risk? So needle in the haystack. It's not just a red flag. People in this industry don't respond well to red flags. Red go, red stop, green go. They want to understand why. They want to go back and look at the chain of data and evidence and figure out what happened and why this is happening. Is it stop or go low because you're overtrained in sprinting or in weightlifting, or maybe you're undertrained and you actually have to add more volume? And the third thing is we kind of visualize ways to engage with to change the routine for today. So let's say it's a Tuesday and you're playing a big cup game on Saturday. What should Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday look like? What kind of information? We present information that helps make the plan, adjust the plan for those days. Is it like the commandments you have to follow? No, we're visualizing options for the expert to figure out into their process. If a coach comes in on a Wednesday morning and says, holy shit, we have to do this other thing, then that's going to override any system and any medical opinion. But the idea is to create a workflow where there is a calibrated compass and recommendations in that journey that's calibrated with a very big data set and with transparent calibration, right? when we create these information, we're like, hey, this piece of thing is 95%, this the other thing is 80%, so they can integrate that into their process. So it actually elevates the whole process into that level.
And I'm curious because that does help give a good understanding of what it is that would come out on the other end. I'm curious how the players are receiving this. I mean, I see, for instance, you guys are working with. I saw, like, I played for Chicago Fire and I played for Sporting Kansas City. But I think I saw LAFC. I don't know if there are any other MLS clubs that you guys are working with.
There's a couple, just not on the record yet.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, great. I mean, I figured, it's all over there, and Liverpool and this and that, and I saw some things that I didn't know. How are players reacting to this sort of data, and do they get personal data? Like, would I be able to see, hey, this is Will's this, and as well as look at within the team, right? I mean, clearly those two things are the most important.
So that's a great question. We act as a tech tool in the stack of the team itself, right? The team stores information and processes it, and they have a workflow of experts, doctors, coaches, data scientists, sports scientists, looking at it, and we plug into that workflow. What happens beyond that, right, on the field with the players is not really where we deal with.
Right. And I'm curious then, so with that being the factor, and I mean, I don't know prices and I don't know how things work and how they cost. I'm curious because we have a large young male audience who, much like the players, they and they don't have nearly the amount of things that are available to us as pros. However, they still want to make the same level of gains. They want to compete on that level, and it's true for some academies and places that I've been all over the world. I've seen youth teams who don't even have, they share one ball between 6 teams, right? And then you have youth academies who have everything you can imagine. And so is there any use, or is there any possibility of individuals using this as a use case yet? Or is that too...
I think it's a little bit further down the road. Probably think about this existing ecosystem of let's say well-being and fitness devices, right? The Fitbits and the Garmins and the Auras and the Whoops, the Apples, of course. They're great. Sometimes they actually understand what you're doing, like the activity itself, like the running and the cycling. Sometimes, you could just kind of like go, hey, I've been surfing for 2 hours or wrestling for 2 hours. And there's very little information about the actual nuances of every single motion you make and the kind of physical exertion you go through. So I think this is probably going to pop into the running and cycling universe sooner than later. But it's also really hard because to do this well, you need access to more than just what a watch or a ring could give you. You need to understand the full context of what the person's doing, the goal they're trying to hit, right? It's very, very different kind of workout if you're trying to hit a 10K under 40 minutes in 2 weeks or 10 weeks or maybe something else. So there's a lot of context around there that I think is not yet being collected by, the machines and the brains behind these devices. But there's a lot of information you can try and curate yourself, right? Yourself. So, my biggest advice there would be to get your hands on a good fitness wearable that you like and trust, and to just collect data for a while and kind of see how you want to layer some process on top of that.
Sure. You touched on previously the military and soldiers.
Yes.
What can you divulge from what you guys are doing or helping people out with that?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of projects going on. The idea here is the military athlete is, in a way, similarly to the sports athlete, exposed to a lot of physical requirements. Sorry, give me just a sec. I have to. Sorry, guys.
Sure.
No, sorry, I got to do this. Sorry, kids getting up. So,
no worries.
Let me go back to all right. Pause and go.
Military.
So we are doing some work in the military, and there are some similarities between the sports athlete and the military athlete in the sense of, number one, they're being pushed to a limit physically. They're in a program, right? There's a structure to it. There is a timeline to it. So it's not kind of like, hey, folks who are working out. And there's a really strong motivation from a human perspective and a financial perspective to narrow down the dropout rate, if you use that term. And so a really interesting scenario here is to look at a 6 or 12-month selection course for some sort of a military elite unit where, they have really, really high drop-off rates. A chunk of them are attributed to musculoskeletal injuries. And can you help manage or provide insight for that process so that you end up with a more efficient way of kind of going through that process? And when you look at scale, right, like NATO, US, you've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people going through those things every couple of years. So the military universe is there's a direct line between that and sports. What's interesting is that there's also a lot of crossover between the knowledge and the expertise of human performance and physiology between those two environments. So we're doing our thing there, and it's fascinating. It's a big machine, right? There's no single sports organization that gets even remotely as big as what you get to do with battalions and those kinds of organizations.
Right. Yeah, I find it incredibly fascinating. Just in general, we had a journalist on. Now it's been a little bit, but he was focused mainly on sports betting, but he took a hard turn and started to try and uncover what athletes were doing when they have, let's say, unlimited funds or near unlimited funds in order to progress their careers, do things like this. And he had some stuff that he actually wasn't even able to publish that he had found. And it's a small tangent, but players were doing all sorts of things, from changing their bone structure, replacing certain things. And footballers specifically, which I thought was, I don't know how, obviously I'm too dumb to figure out what it is that I would need to replace myself to, that I would want. But it makes me think and wonder about the level with which this is going to get taken, and how much better I'm sure it can actually go and get as teams start to really truly adapt and lean on this. I've seen definitely, from one of the clubs that I played on had the statistician, who wasn't just a statistician, truly, and I don't have a better title for him. He would be there, and he would actually he'd be on the field, right? He'd be almost in real time judging, seeing things, checking heart rates, doing all this stuff. And that is a huge difference to, say, when I was first starting, let's say in the MLS, where there was I can't even remember if we had heart rate monitors back then. I don't remember. Right. And so it's come a long way, and I'm sure it's going to go pretty crazy over the next, 5, 10, 15 years. The last thing I think I would probably want to throw in there, you guys probably have all sorts of success stories and within sports. Is there anyone that stands out, whether injury wise or escaping injury, obviously, or escaping risk, or positive, that you guys are proud of in any case study?
It's a great question. We are, as a company, our philosophy was to stay quiet, shut the hell up until we have something meaningful to say. So we were kind of baking this quietly, because the science community doesn't really respond the way you'd like it to if you just show up and wave your hands. So we're very proud of those case studies. Each one of them represents a very closely scrutinized narrative data project, and they've all been signed off by our clients individually. And almost in all cases, clients have gone on the record and spoken about it. So we try and create this new standard for a case study, right? So I'm very proud of those. There's a couple of those that I really like. One of the very early clients for us in Spain, 𝗲𝗓𝗪, was using the app for 3 years. During that time, they consistently hit number 1 or number 2 in terms of player availability in La Liga. I really like that because it shows a repetitive success or repetitive improvement. So it's not less vulnerable to some folks saying, "Oh, it's a 1-year fluke." There are, we have been, again, I don't want to take credit for a team winning, but because ultimately we are, we're not the pilot. We are a really good, maybe innovative radar on the pilot's dashboard. But this season we were supportive of Napoli. They had great availability numbers. They played great on the field, which we have nothing to do with, but he had great availability numbers.
Sure.
LAFC was something we're very, very proud of. LAFC were the first MLS team to give us a chance. To be honest, a company like this showing up, pitching you as a sports medicine, sports performance guy, it's, you take a chance. And so we're very, very grateful for those folks who took a chance on us. And of course, some of the bigger brands like Liverpool's, just to be trusted by that kind of brand is very good. But look, you're only as good as let's say your last forecast, right? So you have to stay on your toes all the time, and you have to be better every single week, every single season. So these just create more healthy pressure for us to be better.
Yeah, I don't think you're in probably right now in society the one field in which they are demanding more and more and more, and some people are scared. But yeah, I can imagine you've got to always be on your toes there with that. I close out by actually asking. I thought the last one was going to be the last one, but this just because I'm curious, because this is your world. When starting at least to do, and we're not yet done with all the research that we're going to be doing to present the changes in AI that AI will bring to sport. I was surprised to not see a video like the one we're doing, essentially, while we're trying to collect data ourselves and to try to present people with an idea of how artificial intelligence will and is changing the sport, and how you can also be a part of that, or you as a player, or someone who's trying to get more fit can utilize that. My question is, where do you see us going over the next 5 to 10, 15 years, if you could have your way? If you could say, great, if I could incorporate this would be amazing. Blank check, we've got this would be incredible, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that stands out?
You want me to focus this on the pro sports side or just a wider community of fitness?
Go for whatever you want. Yeah, whatever. We're taking all info we can get from guys who know.
Yeah, I think that it's a really good question. This pro sports industry is going through this seismic change, right? And it's kind of shifting towards more of a long-term financial asset people expect to yield well, right? There's good to it and there's bad to it, but it's happening, right? Like big financial institutions are investing in leagues, right? And so now leagues have the incentive to improve and be better and generate more revenue and all that. So on the pro side, I like that trend personally. I think it's going to introduce a new kind of like layer of structured corporate enterprise thinking, which I think is good if it can be combined well with the emotional side of sports. And I think that top down, I'd like to see more of like the player health becoming a major part of how leagues operate. It's already happening in some ways, but still, like the voice of FIFPro is so important, right? The voice of the players in soccer is so important, and top down players and leagues, I think, need to come together to deal with the player health issue. The NFL is doing phenomenal work on that as well. On the individual side, I think a lot of people are getting really serious about their fitness. You can today plot a course individually towards a goal, like weight loss, muscle gain. I want to do 20 pull-ups in a row, or dealing with personal health issues, whether it's diabetes, whatnot. So you have more tools today to plot a course toward those. What I think is missing is connecting that with medical advice, right? Like if you go to see a doctor because you have a bad knee, and I'm literally here because I was standing on a ACL reconstruction from 6 weeks ago. The doctor doesn't look at your welfare, at your running data, right? Did you run 100 miles a week or 20 miles a week, or did you lift a lot or not a lot? The doctor doesn't even look at it. It's not even part of their paradigm. I think that's kind of my take. Whereas if you go to a gym and you're being asked to like, hey, can we put together a 12-week plan for me to lose or gain or whatever? They don't really look at your medical record. So there's a disjoint there.
Yeah.
And I think tech can help bring it together, but it's also about people and the industry changing some of the paradigms. That's kind of where I'm excited most about. If you go in to see, if you have knee pain and you're going to see a surgeon, it kind of makes sense for them to go, oh, can I just click here and see how much you've been running the last couple of weeks on your treadmill and what kind of elevation you've been doing? And have you been doing squats? Let me see how much you've been lifting on squats. That's the kind of thinking that, I imagine maybe one day we're going to get to, which will mean better journeys for all of us on the fitness side.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good point. There is definitely a disconnect between those two. We apply maybe an almost one size fits all solution to this thing where we have all this extra data that could be very useful into either prevention or making sure it doesn't happen again, right? So very cool. I think that's it. But I appreciate all this. It's been very, very, very helpful, and it'll continue to help us kind of grasp what the hell is going on with AI and sports if we can. So thank you. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm deeply grateful for being part of this podcast, and I wish you all a healthy and successful journey towards your goals.
Thanks. All right. We'll leave links, obviously, right down below. Guys, close this out like it's a podcast, even though it may not be. Links down below to everything and to Zone 7, and we'll see you later.